Welcome to Yes We Can podcast with Bishop Sherman D.Manning. I am excited about this show and glad to be coming into your home today. We have a special guest, unlike any other guest I've had before. This is Antonio Romanucci. I hope I'm not butchering his name. If I am, we'll clarify it later on. He started out as a Cook County public defender, overworked, underpaid, doing the best he can to help those who are less fortunate. And he has gone from being a Cook County public defender to being named leading lawyer's #1 civil rights lawyer and Chicago Magazine's 2021 Person of the Year. He has fought fiercely for victims of negligence, abuse, wrongful death arising from civil rights actions, mass torts, class action lawsuits, police misconduct, as well as medical malpractice. He was called the architect by Benjamin Crump concerning the record-breaking lawsuit against the city of Minneapolis and 4 cops for the murder of George Floyd. I could have just started out by saying George Floyd and everybody would have known who I was talking about. I know I'm hitting the mic, but I'm excited. Antonio Romanucci is a great man who's concerned about the community, concerned about justice. He has sued the Catholic Church. This guy has won more than $1 billion in lawsuits. Antonio Romanucci coming up right after this. Now, I see where you graduated from the academy in 1981 and became a police officer at that time. What have you learned over these 30 or 40 years of policing about policing that might help you in your duties now as chief of police?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you come in, you have kind of an idealistic attitude, and you think you can solve everything and do it by yourself. The longer you stay out there on the street, and the longer you work in this business, you realize that it's very complex, very nuanced. What you thought you saw is different than what you actually saw, and that you need to get to know people to really know what's going on, and that's over an extended period of time. And everything is based on trust, everything that's going to work.
The one and only.
Good to see you. How are you, Bishop? Good to see you. Good to see you.
This is Dr. Terry. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We're being recorded.
All right.
He's pastor of Good News Baptist Church, but he also has, what do you call it, sir?
Christoph, nice to meet you, sir.
Make sure you get to your phone.
I'm the interfaith liaison for the chief. I deal with the interfaith community and a faith-based organization. Okay. Liaison, just like with Bishop Manning, and try to come to that understanding and have a little working group so, we can, the faith community is our biggest partner when we're out there. Right. So, y'all hear things within your flock that we don't get to hear, or you hear things during men's groups or women's groups, and we have a communication. Those are little things that we can hear, and if it's rises to the level of faith, upper echelons of the department, let them know if it's something at a divisional level where we can just go out there and pass out stickers and say hi and just show our presence and just to let them know that whatever it is out there. Show that there's this cooperation that we've always had and that bridge continues to be built.
And you are a man of faith, right?
100%.
Okay. The chief has got to go in 3 minutes. So, but make sure you give me a call. Before he goes, Dr. Wilson, let's pray for the chief. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, I pray that you would bless this chief, help his department, help his officers. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted you to see those videos because my journey has been sort of transformational. So I've gone from auditing the police and protesting the police and being very angry sometimes with the police to now I have befriended the chief of police in this city, Jim McDonald, a great man, by the way, along with some other officers and sergeants and things of that nature. And one of those videos you saw, I took my dear friend, Dr. Terry Wilson, to meet my friend, the chief of police, and we're seeing what we can do together. Let's get ready for Antonio Romanucci. Welcome to Yes We Can podcast with Bishop Sherman D.Manning. My guest today is a civil rights attorney known around the world. If I say George Floyd, you say Antonio Romanucci. I hope I'm not butchering your last name, sir. Welcome to the show.
You said it perfectly. It's easy. It's Roman and Ucci. That's all you got to do.
Got it. So, Mr. Romanucci, do me a favor and tell me who you are.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. This is an important opportunity to get our message out and talk to people. And so I'm Antonio Romanucci. I'm a civil rights attorney with my own law firm based out of Chicago, Illinois. Our practice is national. However, as you stated, Bishop Manning, for better or worse, we are known worldwide because many of our cases take us on the news all over the world. And what I do is represent people who have been wronged by police departments or agencies across the country. People who have been shot and killed by police officers. So that's what civil rights generally is, trying to bring back people's rights that have been taken away from them.
And what made you want to become an attorney? And how old were you when you knew you were going to become an attorney?
Well, I love that question, and thank you for answering it because I really look at where I am right now and where I started as a road. If you can picture this long winding road with the background of Chicago in it, well, I'm on that road, and that road had many stops.
Right.
But the first stop I had on the road to where I am right now, Bishop Manning, is I started at the Cook County Public Defender's Office as an intern when I was a second year law student. And that's where I really learned a lot about the injustices that I try to right with what I'm doing right now. I spent a lot of time as a public defender, not only as an intern, but also as an attorney when I did graduate law school and become an attorney as one of my next stops on the road that I talked about. I spent a lot of time in gun court. I spent a lot of time in drug court. So I like to tell people that I am an expert in guns and drugs when it comes to the Fourth Amendment and how they relate to unlawful searches and seizures.
Right.
And that's where I learned my skills in being able to represent people in terms of having their rights aggrieved.
But back to the original question, how old were you when you decided you wanted to be an attorney?
How old was I?
Yes.
Well, I think to be specific, I was probably 16 when I knew that I couldn't pass chemistry and become a doctor. So I looked at the next best profession, and it was law school. And I don't regret that day. Probably there was a higher order that told me that I needed to flunk chemistry in order to be the attorney that I am, because I couldn't be happier with the choice that I made.
Wonderful, wonderful. We've got some very weighty and heavy issues that I want to cover today. And as a bishop who houses the homeless and deals with traumas and dramas in the streets every day, most of my work is weighty and heavy. But before we get into the weighty stuff, I just want to ask you a couple of preliminary questions because, again, I'm trying to figure out who you are. You know, I love great lawyers. And there haven't been that many, if you ask me. Clarence Darrow, Johnny Cochran, Bobby Lee Cook, if you've heard of him, Tom Mesereau, okay, and Tony Romanucci. Ben Crump, by the way. I would like to know, what did your mother do and what did your father do? Are they living now?
Well, I am very, very happy to say that both my parents are alive and well.
Wonderful.
My father, in just a few short days, he will be 93. My mother, 91.
Wow.
And they are immigrants from Italy, if you can imagine by my name. And they came to this country when they were in their mid-20s. And I was born here in the United States. And my father, for many, many years, was in the travel business with some of the airlines, Pan American Airlines, Alitalia Airlines. Then he was in the travel business for a while. And then my mother was such a talented, and I mean talented, and to this day, cook, that they decided to open up their first restaurant. And that was in the late 80s. I'm not exactly sure of the year, but it was the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken, like 1978, 1979. They opened up their first restaurant. And then they grew that to 6 restaurants. And they opened up a food manufacturing facility, like a commissary for their restaurants. And then they expanded that business to service the airlines. And I love the business. I worked it for many, many years in high school and college, and even when I was in law school. But I knew my calling was to be a lawyer, not to be in the food service business. And so I chose my path.
Wow. And may I ask one more question in that department? What is your mother's name and what is your father's name?
My mother's name is Anna, and my father's name is Dino.
Well, hello to the both of them. If they're watching now, I know they're very proud of you. And I'm curious, when you took on the George Floyd case, which we're going to unpack in a moment, and when you won this humongous monetary verdict, what was your mom's response to that, if you can share?
Well, for not only my mother, but both my father, all they can do is exude pride
Wow.
in what I do because they know that I'm servicing not only people, but also doing God's type of work.
Right.
And so their pride is immense in anything that I do because they see me as not only lifting their story, obviously, because they came here to this country with mere dollars in their pocket, but also lifting up community. I'm lifting up communities and I'm lifting up our office. I'm trying to do whatever work I can to make those around us better.
Wonderful, wonderful. Those who are watching now, I guarantee everybody is waiting to get to the George Floyd issue. And I'm learning a little bit more about how to work the algorithm. So those who are watching, share, like, comment on the video, and let's get this story out there. Before I go to George Floyd, I also read in my research where you have filed several lawsuits or a lawsuit against the Catholic Church for what was going on there.
Yes, my practice is not exclusive only to civil rights. We have a law firm with over 20 lawyers dedicated to serving people who have been aggrieved who have been either victims of injury or their families. We represent families whose loved ones have been killed. And so not only do we practice in civil rights, but also sexual abuse, sexual assault, medical malpractice, mass torts, class action. And so the case that you referred to the Catholic Church here in Chicago, the Archdiocese of Chicago, results in abuse cases in which they've been involved in over decades period of time.
And did you win that case?
Well, we've had numerous wins against the Catholic Church in terms of settlements with them. However, they are all confidential results.
Absolutely. What is the largest verdict or settlement you've ever won that you can talk about?
Well,
I read something about $1 billion, and I think I was mistaken, but tell me about that.
Well, I think what you read was that our firm has been so fortunate over the years that we've collected well over $1 billion in results for our clients. But some of our highest results have been in the 9 figures, which means over $100 million several times for people that have either been hurt or aggrieved as a result of toxic chemical leaks. It's called a toxic tort, or a group of people who have been assaulted by the same doctor over a decades period of time, and we've represented many of those people. So our results range in recoveries of over 100 million to recently a settlement in over 50 million and verdicts in the 40 millions. So we pride ourselves on being able to obtain very high quality, maximized results for our clients.
Yeah, you seem very diversified and versatile, if you will. I'm wondering, when you were a public defender, were you basically defending criminal cases or what?
Yeah, so as a public defender, it's very interesting, the dichotomy, how it works between being a criminal defense lawyer and a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer.
Right.
Because as a criminal defense lawyer in the public defender's office, I was representing indigent individuals, people who did not have enough money to hire an attorney to represent themselves when they were charged with a crime. So I represented individuals in the public defender's office who did not have a lot of money.
Right.
As a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer, I'm doing the same thing. I am representing individual plaintiffs who have been hurt or represent families whose loved ones have been killed, who don't have to pay up front. They only pay when we get a result. So there's an amazing paradox between, or I should say, comparison between being a criminal public defender and a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer. They are very comparative.
And your cases, as a plaintiff's attorney, they are taken on what's called contingency. Am I correct?
That's right. Contingency means that we only recover our own fees if we do well for you. So the reason that's important is because we work extra hard to make sure we maximize the result, because if we do, then we get paid in tandem with what our clients get paid.
Right. And I really personally respect what you all do, because I have a lot of lawyer friends. One that was on this podcast, Doug Schaefer. We were just talking the other day. I saw this big news article where he had sued the police department here in LA and won a $10.8 million verdict, but the city was not held liable, and the officer filed for bankruptcy. So he was telling me, I just spent $50,000 to get nothing back. So he was quite frustrated, but the publicity was very good. So listen, I know everybody is here for the George Floyd story. You all saw me. I had Reverend Al Sharpton here, and we talk a lot about George Floyd and some of the other issues facing this great country that we're living in at this moment. And but for those of you who want to talk about or hear about George Floyd, you're going to have to wait until we come right back after this. This is only the beginning, and the road ahead is long. But with your prayers, with your generosity, with your support, this mission can be accomplished. This mission will get done. We will graduate more Anthonys from our Tiny Homes project. And thanks to your generosity, our graduates will be able to say that I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was homeless, but now I'm housed. Was blind, but now I see. Let the church say amen. Talk to me, somebody. I'm almost done. I told Norberto once that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. My calling today as a bishop is to unite people from all walks of life. And if you don't think we can do it, just look around in the room right now. To unite people from all walks of life, individuals who might never otherwise cross paths, through the grace and guidance of Almighty God. I want to bring them together to create a human symphony of change makers and change agents. We may differ politically. We may differ in our backgrounds. We may even differ in our beliefs, but we choose to rise above division for a common cause together. Together we stand against the injustice of homelessness in the wealthiest nation on planet Earth. We refuse to turn a blind eye. Instead, we commit our time, we commit our wisdom, our energy, and our connections to lifting up the boats that are stuck at the bottom. Because when the boats at the bottom move, all boats are going to sail. Because let's be clear, it is difficult to wake up in the morning and go look for a job when you step outside all night long on a concrete slab. It's just not doable. This is unacceptable. We will not tolerate it any longer. Not in our city, not in our neighborhood, not in the greatest nation on planet Earth. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying that interview with world-renowned attorney Antonio Romanucci. I plan to bring him to Los Angeles very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember that Yes We Can Worship Center is my employer. I'm the pastor, I'm bishop of that organization. We house the homeless, we feed the hungry. It means everything to me, taking care of those who are less fortunate than we are. I'm asking you right now, please, go to thetinyhomesproject.com, thetinyhomesproject.com, click donate now, send your donation. We're going to have to raise millions of dollars to get this done. And I know that with great people like you, my guests who have been on this podcast, many of them support the work that we do, we're going to be able to get this done. Thetinyhomesproject.com, send your donation today. Also help us work this algorithm. I want you to like this video, share it, talk to your friends about it. It's hard to get this guy on a podcast interview, I can tell you that now. And we were able to do it by the grace of God. I am excited about what's going on with Yes We Can podcast with Bishop Sherman D. Manning. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's get back to this interview. Thank you for joining us, Bishop Sherman D. Manning. I am joined by one of the greatest lawyers of all time, from what I've read and heard from others. He comes highly regarded, and we're excited to have him here. Mr. Romanucci, I was thinking about it a couple of days ago. I can remember I was driving through Sherman Oaks some years ago after the George Floyd case made all the national news. And as I got off of the highway, I saw about 50 white people in Sherman Oaks, California, protesting. And they were holding up signs, and I saw black faces on these signs. And so I got out of my car and walked over and said, "What is this all about?" And they were talking about, "This is about George Floyd. Enough is enough. Get your knee off my neck. I can't breathe," so forth and so on. And I literally watched this world as I knew it change before my very eyes as a result of what happened to Rodney King. I'm sorry, Rodney King. He's in my mind today also, to George Floyd, and what you, Ben Crump, and others were able to do for the family as a result of that. Without even asking a question, I know that you are frustrated by what you see going on right now. We made so many gains. I thought. And then now we have this new administration. And listen, I have people who watch me who support Trump. I have people who don't support him. Someone called me last night and said something about they were calling him Taco or something like that. I don't even know what that's all about. But that's what they said. What do you feel when you wake up and see all of the gains, or a lot of the gains, that you all and this society were able to make, and what this administration is doing as it pertains to those gains?
Well, first of all, to answer the question directly and then circle back with it, I wake up and I feel immense disappointment because I know how long it took for us to get there. And when I say how long, way before I was born, and I'm not a young person, okay? So when I say I know how long it took 150 years. It took 200 years. It took 250 years, maybe longer, for us to get to a point where we saw the paradigm shifting. And that was in 1964 with the Civil Rights Act that was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
That was when we saw our first paradigm shift. But even then, that wasn't enough, was it?
Right.
It wasn't enough because there was so much work that had to be done after that in order for us to get to a point to have another paradigm shift. And I really believe, in setting aside, the Martin Luther King assassination, which was only a few years after the enactment of the Civil Rights Act, really, what was our next seminal moment where we thought we had a real opportunity to make a change?
Right.
That was something that you mentioned, and then you kind of pulled it back a little bit.
Right.
That was Rodney King.
Absolutely.
And Rodney King wasn't enough. Right. That was the moment when we thought, okay, this is the moment where change comes.
Yes.
And change didn't come. And then we had to wait, another 30 years?
Yes.
Right? We had to wait 30 years for the next paradigm to come.
Right.
And that was George Floyd.
Right.
And then that's when everybody got involved. That's why you saw those demonstrators from Sherman Oaks, who you never would have seen do what they did. Never. Because we saw it all over the world, not just this country or any one city. We saw the world react to George Floyd. When you look at those drone's eye views of demonstrations in Sydney, Australia, London, England, Rome, Italy, Frankfurt, Germany, you pick a city in this world, and they were demonstrating in favor of George and against what the marginalization of specifically Black people and the misconduct that police officers were conducting on individuals and subverting their civil rights.
Right. And so we saw this seminal moment. We saw this change, this transformation across the country, and I was excited about it on a high, so to speak, a spiritual high. And then suddenly, here comes your new president. And what do you think is the main policy, a couple of them, if you will, that you've seen this new administration enact that sort of negate the progress we made with George Floyd?
All right, well, let's talk specifically about three of them. I'm not going to be able to give you the exact executive number orders,
Right.
but I'm going to talk about three executive orders that right now are decimating what we're doing.
Right.
And the first one was with the elimination of diversity, right? When, George Floyd basically was, shall we say, the father of DEI, just like Harvey Weinstein in his infamous way was the father of the Me Too movement.
Right. Right.
George Floyd was the father of DEI.
Right.
And now this administration has said no more diversity. We want everybody to be equal. So now we're going back to Brown versus Board of Education days where we're talking about separate but equal. So it's the elimination of diversity. Number two is the executive order. And this is a quote, Bishop Manning. We are going to, quote, unleash the police on the communities, end quote. Keep that one in mind.
Wow.
The third one are the executive orders that he's entered against law firms, basically telling them who they can represent and what they can do in order to have access to the White House and so on and so forth. So what that is doing,
and I was going there shortly, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So listen to what he's doing. He's ripping the page out of Shakespeare from 400 years ago, when at that time, when he knew, when he was living in England and people wanted to be king, and if you wanted to be king, what do? You kill the lawyers. So with those,
is that where that quote came from, Shakespeare, that said, "Let's kill all the lawyers"? I remember
yes,
that quote.
Sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
All right.
That is a Shakespearean quote, and someone much, much smarter than me will tell me which one of his novellas that came from, which one of his plays came from. I don't remember.
Right.
But I do know that Shakespeare knew that if you kill the lawyers, you basically mow the path to being able to become king, because what do lawyers do? We do what we do.
Right.
We follow the rule of law.
Right. Right.
And we live in a democracy. So our democracy says that we have a constitution. Our constitution says that we have a Bill of Rights. And one of our Bill of Rights is to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Right. Right. Right.
And so that's that. When you look at your question is, when you eliminate diversity, you unleash the police, you want to eliminate the lawyers, that equals a subversion of rights and is the pathway to tyranny.
Pathway to tyranny. This is exciting, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to share this video. This man is preaching the gospel, as we would say in church. So we're going to unleash the police on the community. That is a quote again from whom?
That is a quote from this administration's executive order. If you want to give me a moment at our next break, I'll pull it for you so we know exactly what we're talking about. I have it.
This is horrible. So talk to me a minute about the lawyers and how you feel when you see some of these white shoe boutique law firms that are world-renowned and very wealthy and very powerful and prominent, and many of them have thrown in the towel and bent the knee to kiss the ring to say that we're going to do hundreds of millions of dollars worth of pro bono work for the Trump administration, and we're going to fall in line. What did you think when you saw that?
Well, I love what you just said, because now you're invoking one of my favorite TV shows, The Game of Thrones. It's
right.
Exactly what you're seeing here. You're seeing the game actually being played out, exerting this tyrannical strength against the lawyers and making them bend the knee in order to provide these pro bono services, which we don't know where they're going to go. But now we've heard percolating rumors that these pro bono hours are going to head into representing the police officers on these civil rights cases to make sure that they have adequate representation. So they're going to get free services. So you're asking me how I feel about it?
Right. Yes.
Well, I feel pretty terribly about it because I know that we have an oath to follow,
Right.
and that is to do good, to represent our clients to the best of our ability, and not to give in to some power play, some game
Right.
in order to advance someone's own political agenda.
Right. And it seems to me, I think these are brilliant lawyers, so I would never challenge their intellect. But I just wonder, you got to be a little bit naive if you think you're going to submit to that person. I don't want to call his name. I'm sorry, ladies. I just don't want to call his name. When you submit to him one time, this administration, current administration, president, he's coming back for more because it's never enough. A bully is never satisfied. He will continue to beat you when you're on the ground and lying there in blood. So I was very disappointed about that also. Back to George Floyd. So I am troubled, Mr. Romanucci. That's why I wanted to wait a moment before I got to George Floyd. When I look around at what I see going on in the country, this country that I love, this country that I believe in, and you look at how they're trying to write Black people out of history. You look at the way Jews are being attacked in this country, and you have an administration pretending that they're attacking Harvard on behalf of Jews, when you and I both know that's not what it's really about. They just want control over it. It's like this is becoming a third world country. Like we're almost we have a dictator in office here. So what I want to know from you, as a brilliant attorney who's won over $1 billion in settlement fees, you are a lawyer, you know a lot of lawyers, you know a lot of preachers. What can we do now to turn this thing back around and not lose the gains that we've made in this great transformation as a result of George Floyd? What can we do?
Well, that's why we're here. Okay. And that is the exact reason why we're here, because if we don't galvanize, first of all, it has to be, I hate to say this because people don't like it. They want to see other people take action.
Right.
But if we don't galvanize at the street level, at the grassroots level, and raise it to the local level, to the cities, the counties, and the state, that's where it has to happen right now. It has to happen locally. Right. And so understand, whoever is watching this podcast, when I say local, it means in your community, it means in your city, it means in your counties, and it means in your state. Because right now, that's where we have the best opportunity to fight. Our mayors, our attorney generals from some of these great states, such as yours and even mine, California and Illinois, some of the strongest governors that we have, the strongest attorney generals, they're the ones who are in the forefront of this fight. If it wasn't for my attorney general, Kwame Raoul, and my governor, J.B. Pritzker, who are always speaking out against the administration and trying to show the citizens of this country where the administration is wrong because it flies against the face of our Constitution. Now, maybe if we lived in Russia, right, what this president was doing would be okay with Correct. The police and Correct. The local leaders and everybody else and the citizens. Right. But it's not okay in this country. That's right. We should never accept the unleashing of police on communities. We should never accept the elimination of the rule of law as being acceptable or anything that is mainstream, because we live in a democratic country that has a constitution and a Bill of Rights, and it has a rule of law. And right now, his administration every one of them has bent the knee to him, from his Secretary of State to Secretary of Treasury to his Attorney General. You look at the elimination of the consent decrees in some of the cities where they've had some of the worst policing.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
The elimination of consent decrees.
Right.
You're giving them, you're ratifying the behavior. Right. You're saying, oh, well, prior administrations, when they investigated you, they were wrong. We're going to take that consent decree away. Go back to how you were policing, because you don't have to worry about being investigated. Not with this civil rights department.
Right. He eliminated all the records concerning their misconduct thus far. It's like they all have a clean slate now. And so as I try to move forward and shift gears, but all in the same vein, let's talk about police brutality and what you think about that and what you have been a part of doing about that. I want my audience to know, because I will tell you this, for most of my life, I have, and I got to be politically correct here, for most of my life, I have not liked the police a lot, let's put it that way. I have personally witnessed wrongful convictions, killings, police brutality. I've seen the worst of the worst. And as a bishop, as God has elevated my ministry, grown me up and matured me, I've had to also realize and recognize that there are good police officers. I have a person in my family right now who's going to become a police officer. I know he won't become corrupt. I know he will be one of the good guys. But I do want to say that in LA, if you will go back, and I'm not going to show them, I was thinking about having Miss Morris, producer, to show some of those videos, but I'm not going to even do that. And if the president is watching, don't get mad with Miss Morris. She has nothing to do with the content. I create the content. She just edits. So I was thinking about showing some of the videos where I used to audit the police, Mr. Romanucci, right here in Los Angeles. Some of them got hundreds of thousands of views, where I would walk up on police officers as they were making arrests of mostly Black and Hispanic men, and I would talk to them. And it would turn into a lot of things, some of which I'm not proud of, but they really liked me auditing those videos, and I did it for years until the LAPD decided to set me up. Okay, and I won't talk about that at the moment, but I will say that I have gone from auditing them to, true story, the current chief of police, Jim McDonald, is a personal friend of mine. Not only has he been on this podcast, we've met on several occasions, and he is a good man. That doesn't mean that the police department is good. That doesn't mean that everything they do is good. He is a good man. So let me throw this out there before we move to the next question. You've got me excited, as you can tell. I challenge you and the chief. Let's get together. I'd like for you to come to Los Angeles, sit down, and talk with the chief of police, one of the largest police departments in this country, and see what we can do together. So those of you watching, think about that, and you can comment on that also. But I'd like to bring the two of you together. But what do you think about the state of policing in 2025 as it relates to Black people, brown people, and I'll just be honest, poor white people? Because rich people don't get treated the same way poor people do in this country by the police. I've been stopped in Beverly Hills maybe 10 times over the last year. Every time I'm stopped, it's yes, sir, no, sir. I have never gotten a ticket there. They always let me go. They give me a warning. And a couple of times I was actually speeding, okay? But in juxtapose that with South Central. When I'm in South Central, I have been thrown up on a police car before. I have been threatened. I've been mistreated, because you're in the hood, and this is the way we police over here. And so I know what my personal experience has been like, and what the experience of my members and the people I serve has been like. But I'm wondering, what do you think about the state of policing in this country and police brutality, and what can we do about that?
Well, first of all, I think we need to start with the good police, because I think we all want policing in our communities. We all want to make sure that we feel safe and secure.
Yes.
And I can tell you, this is, I'm not making these numbers up, but there are statistics that we can say that between 97 and 99% of police officers, depending on the police force that we're looking at, they are good officers. They are ones that care about public safety, because really, we want to look at police officers as guardians of the peace and not militaristic warriors. Now, it's the bad cops. It's the one that violate rights, that make the news, and that cast the shadow over the good police officers. So your chief of police and I, guess what? We have a lot in common. We would agree on many of the things that he wants, I would want. And that's because, as a chief of police, he wants the good police officers.
Right.
Now, getting to part two of your question, what is the state of policing? Here's where policing begins, and here's where good policing can really go a long way, and that's building trust at the community level. So when you're in a municipality, or you're being policed by an agency, that does not have good street level policing, meaning that they have a stop and frisk policy that is not being governed closely, or they have, like what you were talking about, a traffic stop policy that's based on predicate, a predicate stop based
Right.
because of the color of your skin, for example. If they predicate stops based on that,
Right.
then that's where the mistrust begins in policing. That's where the violations of rights begin. And then we have the issues of people running from the police. And why is it? People ask me all the time, well, Tony, if he didn't run, he wouldn't have been shot. Or if he didn't run, he wouldn't have been tackled.
Right.
Well, I have an answer to that question. People in marginalized communities, whether you're in a poor community or in a community that's more black than white or Hispanic more than black or whatever it is,
Right.
when it's marginalized, there's extra policing there. And people know that they have a chance to be arrested for no reason when they live in a marginalized community. So the instinct then is to run from that, but running turns into a lot of times violence. And the violence is typically from the police officer who either wind up tasing the individual, sometimes shooting. When you look at Terrence Crutcher, who was killed a few years ago, he was walking away from the police with his hands up. He had his hands up and walking away, and the police shot him in the back.
Right.
So, that's when trouble begins. So really the state of good policing starts at the street level, building trust and being guardians of the peace as opposed to warrior mentality.
Right. Right. And I tried not to push back, but I will push back on one thing, and that is the number. I know that's up to opinion. I strongly, and I know the chief is going to be watching, but one of the reasons we're friends is because I'll tell him the truth, and I'll always tell him how I feel. I don't believe that 97% of them are good. I don't agree with that at all. I'd probably say 80%. I know a lot of bad cops. I know a lot of lying cops. I know a lot of racist cops, and a lot of them. And what I tried to get the chief to see, and I was able to get him to get my point a little bit more in the second time we talked, rather than the interview itself, because I asked him the question, what do you think about people who are afraid of the police? And I was trying to get him to understand that when the average black person is stopped in LA by the police, our heart goes into our stomach. We are literally extremely nervous. And the chief, a good man, said something like, oh yeah, nobody likes to be stopped by the police. He made it very generalized, and I saw that he really just didn't get it. And I don't think you got to be black to get it, but I think you have to really give this some serious, long thought to know what it's like to be in a black or brown or marginalized or poor body and get stopped and wonder, are they going to kill me? I know I was speeding. I know I don't have a driver's license. But I don't have a weapon, and I'm not a threat. But are they going to kill me? And if you're white, you can have a weapon sitting on the seat, and you probably still won't get killed. That is racism, and it's a severely complicated issue, because we found that black cops often do the same thing to black people that they arrest that white cops do. And the other problem,
Nichols.
Yes. And the other problem I have, and I have a sergeant with the sheriff's department who's a friend of mine also. He's a black guy. I was telling him the other day is the code of silence. So even if the number were 97% of them are good, I would say 95% of them won't rat out bad conduct by another police officer. I'm just not going to be a rat. So something has to be done about this code of silence, and something has to be done about this qualified immunity. Can you talk to us about that and explain what qualified immunity is?
I want to address something, and I will talk about qualified immunity.
Please do.
But when you look at George Floyd, the moment he had his first encounter with the police after allegedly passing a bad $20 bill, if the public, whoever's watching this podcast, can imagine, if I'm George Floyd and I'm sitting in the driver's seat of my car, and the first thing he sees, because somebody called on him to say it was a bad $20 bill, when he turns his head to his left and he looks behind him, what does he see? He sees a gun pointed at his head from Officer Lane. That's for a bad
A bad
twenty
check.
$20 bill for what we used to call a double sawbuck.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right. Right.
That's what he sees.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's why people run. That's why they're afraid of police. Why did Officer Lane have to escalate the situation immediately?
Right.
As opposed to talking through it, he had a gun pointed at his head.
That's right.
So, all right, so now let's talk about qualified immunity. So qualified immunity, the best way to explain it, it's a get out of court free card for police officers.
Right.
Even if they violate someone's constitutional rights under Section 1983, even if they violate someone's constitutional rights, but it wasn't against established law what their violation was,
Right.
they get out of court free. They get a pass. So not only must they violate the rights, but they must not have known that it was a right to be violated. It must not have been law.
Right.
So and so if we don't have that, they get out of court free. And that's what qualified immunity is.
Okay. Very good. And so do you think there's any chance we can ever eliminate qualified immunity on a federal level, or at least have any local jurisdictions been able to do that, or is this a federal right for officers?
So it is a federal right.
Okay.
It's also on the local level. So some states have eliminated qualified immunity. Right now, I can think of Colorado as definitively having eliminated qualified immunity. Illinois got close a couple of years ago with the Safety Act, but did not do that. Ohio is considering to banning qualified immunity. And so what that would do, just so you understand, that would then lift the responsibility for any officer liability to the municipality level. So the agency for which the police officer would work would be responsible for that police officer's actions and any judgment that would be had against the police officer.
So do you think there's hope for this country? Do you think there's hope for our people as it relates to trying to rectify some of the mistakes this administration is making? In other words, are we going to be able to save DEI? What are we going to do?
Well, we have a lot of work to do, and look, it's going to be, we have a statute of if anybody knows who Sisyphus is, he's the one who pushes the rock up the hill. That's what this is going to be. But the rock has become much bigger, and the hill has become much steeper. So we've got a big rock to push up a big hill in order to overcome some of the undoings of this administration. And when you think about it, under the prior administration, where we had a Democratic president and we had a Democratic Senate, not by much, but we did, and a Democratic House of Representatives, and we weren't able to get the George Floyd Police Reforming Act across the table for the president to sign.
That's right.
So when we had all three branches of government, we weren't able to do it then. I feel very, very pessimistic that we're going to be able to do it when we don't have one Democratic branch of government right now, and especially the way our Supreme Court is constituted, they feel emboldened by what they have right now. And so that's why we need to do it on the local level.
Right.
That's why we got to fight on the local.
And some of this was not able to get across the playing field to the president's desk because of your friend, I'm trying to think of his name. Oh, Joe Manchin. I'm sure you know Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin. It was bugging me. So the famous line, "Let's kill all the lawyers," was spoken by a henchman in Shakespeare's play Henry. Specifically, it appears in scene 2. So that's where that came from. But I remember that as a kid, actually, because I was going to be an attorney until the Lord said otherwise. So when you talk about pushing this rock up the hill, those who are watching, I want them to really know that you hit the nail on the head, and that is this. Jesse Jackson used to say it this way: real change doesn't start in the White House, but it starts in your house and it starts in my house. We've got to organize and strategize. And I love Reverend Al Sharpton. He's a friend of mine. But this is not going to be about Reverend Al Sharpton. This is not going to be about Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's a little bit ill, but I totally respect and love him and look up to him. This is not going to be about any individualized civil rights leaders. This is going to have to be a movement from the ground up, from the bottom up, and it's going to have to be interdenominational. It's going to have to be interfaith. We are going to have to get off of our behinds and go to work. My grandmama almost came out at me as a bishop. I don't cuss, but I almost said something right then. We got to get up and go to work. I see it every day, Mr. Romanucci. I'm in Los Angeles, surrounded by wealth, the city of angels. I'm in Beverly Hills almost every day, and I'm also in South Central every day. On the one hand, I have friends, some of whom have $100 million that they have access to. On the other hand, I'm trying to raise $3 million to transform the lives of some homeless people in this city because government hasn't been very successful at doing so. And so sometimes you feel like you're begging people for money that they're not going to spend in this lifetime. And it's the same way with a movement like this. Sometimes here you and I are talking, and we know what it's going to take to make a difference. But sometimes the question is, how do you get it done? I salute you. I salute Ben Crump. I salute Reverend Sharpton. I salute the Floyd family and all of those who have been involved. And I just say we have to keep the fight. We have to turn up the pressure because this is still a great country. And I am still convinced that most Americans want to get along, want to love one another, and want to make a difference. And I know that we can do it, but we are going to have to get up and go to work. In my last 2 or 3 minutes, cover something that I didn't cover here, tell me something that I don't know, and let's get ready to sign out.
I would love to. I would love to. This is how it works. There was a woman who was shot in July of 2024 in Illinois, in Sangamon County, Illinois, and that is the county that seats our capital of Springfield.
Okay.
Her name was Sonia Massey. She was shot in the face by Officer Sean Grayson because she rebuked him in the name of Jesus while he was in her house checking for prowlers. And he told her that he was going to shoot her in the face.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
And he did.
Yes.
And he did. He did. He followed through on his promise, and he killed her.
Yes.
I was fortunate to, along with my brother, Ben Crump, who I love dearly and immensely, I was able to work alongside Ben on this case. And I promised not only Ben, but the family that because this atrocity happened in my home state, that we were going to get a bill passed in Sonia Massey's name to make sure that the way and manner that she was killed would never happen again. I'm so proud to say that Senate Bill 1953 in Illinois was passed by the Senate here in Illinois. The House of Representatives, led by not only our Speaker of the House, Chris Welch, but his Speaker Pro Tem, Cam Buckner. That bill passed 102 to, I believe, 12. If you heard that correctly, 102 to 12.
Wow.
And that bill is now going to the governor's desk for signature, and we're told very hopefully and gratefully that he's going to sign it. And it's a bill to ensure that only qualified police officers get hired in Illinois. And if you're saying, well, I thought all police officers are qualified when they're hired. Not necessarily true. Barbers have licenses, have more stricter standards in Illinois than police officers.
Wow.
And so that's how it works.
Wow.
That's how it works. And I want to give a shout out to some other people who helped in passing that bill, and that's Chief Communications Officer Jen McGuffin and our lobbyist Paul Rosenfeld. And I already said Cam Buckner and Doris Turner. They all were instrumental in getting this bill passed and getting law made. And that's how we chip away at this huge granite block of policing.
Now, McGuffin, don't you have a McGuffin that works in your office?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's exactly who I'm talking about. That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
And I love Jennifer is very, very much on top of her game and very efficient at what she does. And I salute her and I like her a lot. Listen, I make you a promise. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't run out of words. We're running out of time. I'm going to get him back on this podcast within a month. And we're going to talk more about mass shootings and the need for assault weapon control, gun manufacturer marketing practices, and the need to change that. We got a lot more to talk about. I've been processing this interview, getting ready for it, and the way I get ready for it is like a fighter. I have to jog, I have to work out, I have to meditate because I got so much I want to say and I have so much I want to ask, and I know that a podcast like this can resonate around the country and around the world and can make a difference. But for those who are watching, if you get nothing else out of the podcast, nothing else, take action. Get involved with your church. Get involved with your imam, with your mosque, with your synagogue. Get organized in your home. So just do something because we're watching this country as we know it slip away from us. And I can't believe what I'm seeing. I have to pinch myself. Some of the stuff I see coming out of this administration, some of the assaults. I mean, DEI, what's wrong with being diverse and promoting equity and being against inequality? For the life of me, how could that be wrong? And I know I said I was going to be politically correct early, and I'm a bishop and all of that, but I'm getting ready to ruin all of that. Sometimes I think that the person in the White House is sort of like a modern day Hitler. And I actually got that from his vice president, J.D. Vance, who said years ago that Trump reminded him of Hitler. And he even compared him to heroin. Lindsey Graham said he was a xenophobe, he was a racist, he was a con man, he was a crook, he was a liar. I'm quoting Senator Lindsey Graham. Bishop Sherman D.Manning just says, pray for the guy. Last words, last 2 minutes. What would you like to say in closing, Mr. Roman? And I'm going to get you back in 3 weeks if Jennifer and I can work that out. And I want to bring you to Los Angeles. Tom Mesereau spoke at my church, gave a legal clinic, talked to people. I'd like to bring some pastors together. And when I bring you to LA, I don't want to bring you just for the chief. I want to bring you to talk to some preachers and some pastors. And when I say bring you, my church is full of poor people now, so we ain't got no money. You got to pay your own flight. Okay?
I got you.
Okay. Or come on contingency. When we get some money, I'll give it back to you. But in closing, what would you like to say in closing? And thank you for coming, by the way.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and you've been so great in asking really all the right questions without knowing anything that you were going to ask me today. This was a great conversation. It was a great discussion. And look, the lawyers in this country sometimes we're not very well aligned with the public because they think that lawyers lie. We don't. We are there to we want to protect people. We want to do the right things. People think of, oh my God, it was a frivolous lawsuit. Excuse me. No, we don't want to file a frivolous lawsuit ever. We only want good lawsuits. Frivolous lawsuits mean you're going to lose. And if you're going to lose, you're not advancing the ball in any way. Right. So I just want to thank you for having me on the show, explaining my story a little bit. My story sometimes, as I told you when we started, is a road. Sometimes it's a labyrinth, right?
Right.
It's a labyrinth and not knowing where the right turn is going to be in order to get to the end. Right. We don't know where the marble is going to drop sometimes. We want to drop it where it comes back to you, not where it doesn't.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of
are you going to come? Are you going to come? I can't let you. Are you going to come to LA and talk to our people, to the preachers and the church? Are you going to come at some point and meet with us? Are you willing to do that?
I have a one-word answer. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, we got to prove that these lawyers don't lie. Now, you just got through. You just got through defending. But I know great lawyers. And again, I just told a little quick story about Doug Schaefer, personal friend of mine, one of the few lawyers in this city who consistently sends donations, money to Yes We Can Worship Center for the tinyhomesproject.com. Doug is a good man, but he was sharing with me how he just lost $50,000 trying to defend a woman who was injured by the police. So I know that you all many of you all, guys like you, do great work, and we need you. And I want to encourage you to keep up the fight. And I know sometimes it looks like your work has been in vain because of what you're seeing with this administration, but take it from me. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever man sows, that shall he also reap. We will not stop until we see justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And we will change this country. We will save this country, and we will run this administration out of office the legal way, not the way they did it on January 6th. We're not going to be violent. We're not going to do any of that. But we are going to change this world. We can do it together, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we can.